10,000 Texas football fans were on their feet with a... 10,000 Texas football fans were on their feet.
Oh. I love how this ends.
Ava, come on. I'm trying to read the story.
I'm sorry. This is my favorite movie. I love the main character. She's a lot like me.
I'm learning about character traits in my writer's workshop. Miss Healy says that strong characters are ones that the reader can identify with. I guess you already know that. She told us that skillful authors use the craft of characterization to reveal character traits to readers in a variety of ways. She suggested I read a story in this magazine before starting to write my new story. She knows that I play football and thought I could relate to the character in the story. Miss Healy also told me about this famous quote. She said, "Football doesn't build character, it reveals character." I wonder if that has anything to do with this story.
Football? Maybe I can help. I used to be a cheerleader.
Maybe. But you gotta promise not to cry in the magazine. I have to return it.
Don't worry, I've got enough tissues for both of us.
Hold that thought. Will Ava be able to put on a game face? Will Turner tackle character traits? Join the knowledge seekers as they take it to the gridiron and kick off a series on characterization in this episode of Thinking Aloud. As Turner and Ava huddle to discuss the story, it's important for us to review the playbook on characterization. Skillful authors use characterization to develop the attributes of characters that appear in their stories. Characters' credibility depends on the author's ability to show their true natures, their strengths, and their weaknesses. The characters portrayed within stories should be so convincingly real and lifelike that we feel we've come to know them. But just as it takes time for a good football team to develop, so too are the various dimensions of characters developed, bit by bit, throughout a story. Skillful authors provide a balanced look into their characters' public and private personas. Public traits are those visible to others, such as their appearance, how they look, and what they wear, their biographical background, which includes easy-to-identify personal characteristics like age, gender, education, family, jobs, or hobbies, and their accomplishments, what they do, and what they're noted for. Most characters also have well-developed private persona. Readers are able to see traits that are invisible to others. They see the character's emotions, their feelings, their moods, and their temperament. And they understand the character's inner strengths and fears, which is gained from a deeper look inside to their moral qualities and their fears. Turner is learning that credibility of characters depends on the author's ability to show them to us. Authors use 5 key plays to reveal a character. Narration, the character's conversation with others, the thoughts of the character, others' thoughts about the character, and descriptions of the character in action. Let's listen to Turner's play-by-play as he thinks about the story in the use of characterization.
Here's the story. I'm reading about a football game and someone named Luis.
Who's Luis?
From the title of the story, Luis Garcia, end zone hero? I'm thinking Luis is the main character. So I need to identify the character traits to get to know him. Miss Healy suggested I make a T-chart to record my thinking. First, I'll label the columns public and private to represent the types of character traits I'll be noticing when I read. Listen to this. 10,000 Texas football fans were on their feet with a roar unlike anything Luis had heard before. It was 4th and goal with 3 seconds left on the clock. Coach Lenski called the last timeout with the score tied 14-14. This was the state championship game.
It almost makes you feel like you're there.
Exactly. In this first paragraph, I understand the authors describing the character Luis through narration because no one is speaking. I know that Luis is at a football game, but I'm not sure if he's a fan or a player. So I'll keep reading. Luis Garcia was the new kid in town. A skinny sophomore, he finished his last warm-up throw on the sideline. With injured star quarterback Joey Hahn carried off the field on the last play, Luis knew it was up to him. Still, he was unsure if he even had the nerves to hold on to the football, much less hit a receiver in the end zone.
Aw, that poor guy.
Don't start getting sappy on me. When I read that Luis Garcia was the new kid in town, I'm thinking this is biographical information about him, since it tells me how long he has been at school. I know that biographical information is available to the public, so I record newcomer in the public column. I continue reading and find that Luis is a skinny sophomore. The word skinny describes Luis's physical appearance that we can see, and sophomore is another piece of biographical information, so I add both of these to the public column. When I read, finished his last warm-up throw on the sideline, I'm thinking that Luis must be one of the football players. I record football player under my public column, because this is something visible to others. I also think Luis is ambitious, because he uses every spare minute to practice his skills. This describes an inner strength.
Ambitious should go in the private column.
Right. From the next sentence, I infer Luis is taking Joey's place on the field as the backup quarterback when I read the words, "It was up to him." Since being a quarterback is something he does, I record backup quarterback in the public column.
I'm thinking he must be responsible because it was up to him.
That is another inner strength, so I write responsible in the private column. When I read the words unsure and nerves in the last sentence, I'm thinking these describe Luis's fears, so I add unsure and nervous to the private column. There.
And that's the end of the first quarter. Turner and Ava have executed their analysis perfectly. When an author uses narration to describe a character, she's sharing what the character looks like and what she thinks about the character. But we've only glimpsed into the knowledge seeker's playbook of characterization. Make sure you think about the author's use of narration to reveal the character's public and private personas or traits when reading. Then proceed to End Zone Hero's second quarter, a character's conversation with others. You don't want to miss practice. Become a knowledge seeker and keep thinking aloud.